Okay, so now let's look at number 4. Select each expression that is equivalent to 3n plus 6. Select all that apply. Okay, so this is really just a distributive property. And there's one little trick in here in this one that they're going to try to get to. The answers are B and D, and I'll show you why. First of all, A you can take out right away because 3 times the quantity of n plus 6, where these are in parentheses, is definitely different than 3 times n plus 6, because this is saying take n plus 6 and multiply it by 3. So 3 would be multiplied by n and by 6, whereas in this case, it's only being multiplied by n and the 6 is left alone. Whereas here, that 3n plus 18, that would be our first true statement. If we've got 3 times n plus 6, remember our distributive property says essentially that you have to multiply 3 to n and you multiply 3 to 6. And so it would become 3n plus 18. Because 3 times 6 is 18, 3 times n is n. So this is what you want to remember here as we move forward in this problem. You're not going to want to have a value of 6 being added to anything. You want to have the value of 18 and you want to have 3n. So those are your two terms that we're comparing. So let's look at these other ones. 2n plus 2 plus n plus 4. 2n plus 2 plus n plus 4. Okay, now remember, you can group together these single numbers here, and you can group together any number that has the same variable attached to it. So this has a coefficient of 2 and an n. This has a coefficient of 1 and an n. So 2n plus 1n equals 3n. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I got rid of these guys by combining them together. Plus 2 plus 4 equals 6. So this one is not going to work out because it's giving us 3n plus 6, just like letter A did, not 3n plus 18, which is what this actually is. All right, so we eliminate C. How about D? 4 times the quantity of n plus 6 minus n plus 6. Versus this one down here, 4 times the quantity n plus 6 minus n minus 6. Let's do both of those together. So I've got 4 times the quantity n plus 6, is that right? Yes, minus n plus 6. But this is in parentheses, and those parentheses are important right now. And on this side, we have 4 times the quantity n plus 6, and then I think it's minus n minus 6, and that's all in the quantity n minus 6. And so the confusion where they're trying to get you, and you're not going to be fooled by this, where they're trying to get you is when you're subtracting a quantity inside parentheses, it gets a little bit tricky. There's a couple different ways to think about this one. First of all, you can imagine instead of me writing minus n plus 6, I could do plus, and let me see, I'm going to want to erase this and clean it up, plus negative 1 times n plus 6, okay? Plus negative 1 times n plus 6 is the same as subtracting something. Okay, in that case, just like I do over here where I distribute the 4 to the n and the 6, so it would become 4n plus 24, then it would be plus negative 1 times n, which would equal negative n, and then negative 1 times 6, that would be plus negative 6. Which could then be rewritten to 4n plus 24 minus n minus 6, which would then we can combine our variable, our terms with similar variables. This is negative 1 plus 4n is 3n, and then 24 minus 6 equals 18. So there is our solution right there, and that one is true. Okay? What I did to solve that was I used the distributive property of this negative 1 that is there but is not written. That negative sign implied it there. That is a good way for some people to think about it, not always for others. So I'm going to show you a different way to do it as well. So we'll rewrite it here. 4 times n plus 6 minus n plus 6. All right, another way to think about it is what's going on when you subtract a group like this. I like to think of my positive numbers as basically, if you want to think about money, this is your salary. You earn $6. If it's a negative number, it's your debt. It's how much money you owe. So if you can think of it that way, then this is saying you're going to take, you have 4 times n plus 6, but you have to take away this, whatever this n is, plus your salary of 6. So you're going to end up losing some of your salary, $6 of your salary in this case. So you can do your distributive property here, 4n plus 24. I'm just multiplying in both of those. And then when I subtract away all of this, I'm going to subtract away n, and I'm also subtracting the 6 right here. So all I did was I removed these parentheses, but in order to do that, I had to acknowledge that I'm also subtracting these $6. It's not actually being added. So the parentheses actually, when you remove them, it changes the sign. Because again, here you're subtracting the n and the $6. So you have to subtract n and 6. And then you can, again, find out that's 3n plus 18 when you combine those together. Whereas over here, if I have this negative sign, I like to think of this not as a salary, but as my debt. So it's saying 4n plus 6 minus, you take away the n, plus you take away that debt of $6. Well, if you take away somebody's debt, you gain that $6 back. You owe somebody $6, you're minus $6. If you take away that debt, then you're actually gaining your $6. So what that becomes is 4n plus 4 times 6 is 24, just like we had before. And then minus, and so you're going to take away the n, but you also take away the debt of $6, so you're going to actually add 6. And I know that seems backwards because here you have a negative sign, but because we're subtracting n as well as your debt of 6, you're getting rid of that debt, and so you're actually gaining right here, which you would have had in the same instance if you multiplied by -1. -1 times -6 is +6. So it's the same outcome however you think about it. In this case, 4n minus n is 3n, and then you have plus 30. 24 plus 6 is 30, so that would not be 1. So to answer your question for that one, it's going to be B and D right there. Watch out for these parentheses, especially when you're subtracting. If there was just a plus sign, you could just get rid of those parentheses altogether because it's just plus, so you're basically multiplying +1 into it, which would just be, the same as is written.